think we're going to start with the first presentation. After that, we're going to have some time for a couple of questions. Yes? Yep. Thank you.
Hello. Hope you're having a good conference start. My name's Łukasz Hacura. I'm a CEO of Onshore Studios, and today I'm going to talk about how we created a studio from a total indie environment to a sustainable company. So the purpose of this talk is to show, I didn't want to do this standard talk, like this is 10 things that you need to do to have, oh, glitches? Something? I have no idea what's going on. Sorry. Yeah, so continuing. I didn't want to do this kind of speeches like this is 10 things you need to do to create a business, because I have no idea what are the 10 things you need to do to build a business, right? I have only built one business, and I wanted to take you on a timeline journey of things. Can we do something, because that's like right inside my eyes, that light. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so I need to be here. Okay, that helps, sorry. So I want to take you on a timeline journey from like how we started and what did we encounter during our studio creation, and what problems did we have and how did we solve them, or how we didn't solve them and we still have them. So maybe this is something that can be applicable to you. I don't know how many of you want to build their own studios, how many of you are actually indie developers, but that's the idea of the talk. So how we went from building totally indie to being a sustainable company. Mentioned the steady cash flow, no cigar. It's not like I have a private jet and everything. It's just the company runs, right? It's like no survival mode anymore. Okay. So we started in November 2012, but actually the journey started 6 years earlier, because my first thing I did is actually gain some experience. So I started as a programmer back at the university, and I worked at a company called Fresh Chicken Studios, believe it or not. And then this company was bought by CI Games, and this is how I gained my experience. And I strongly encourage that. I don't say that 6 years is the perfect spot. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's one project, maybe it's 3 years for you. I have no idea. But basically, when you know nothing about business and you know nothing about game development, then creating your own company from scratch, like 100% of risks and mistakes are on you, right? When you start working for a company, they actually invest in you. You're learning and screwing things up for somebody else's money. So that's basically ideal. And I don't think that I would be able to pull off creating a company if I didn't know how the process of creating video games worked in the first place. Second thing is, there are some companies that start alone, but many companies and many success stories are, I don't know, people in the same dorm room, or people working on the same science project in the university, and this is how companies created. Like, this is like Facebook was created, this is how Nasza Klasa was created, etc. So the first thing, you need to find a partner. You usually have a partner. In my case, it was Krzysztof Biegański, and there are three things about having a partner. First, you're supposed to have the same goals, right? If your goals are different, then sooner or later there's going to be a divide in a company. Second thing is, you shouldn't have do the exactly same thing. Like a company that was started by 7 programmers and they all do the same, have the same competencies, that just doesn't make sense. In my case, for example, I know nothing about art. Like, that's my Achilles heel, right? I know a little bit about programming, I know a little bit about production. I love game design, I suck at it, but I love it. And I have no idea how art works. And I'm actually forbid to talk to artists in our company in terms of feedback and stuff like that. So Chris handles that, right? And second thing is, trust is like, I think, the most important thing. Because actually creating a company is worse than marriage, okay? You're gonna see this person 10, 12 hours a day. You hope it's gonna be 8, but it's never gonna be 8. You're gonna see that person 10, 12 hours a day. It's actually harder to dissolve a partnership if you have an established studio than a marriage. So that's pretty important who you start your company with. Well, I know Chris for exactly a quarter of a century, so that was like pretty easy for us. We went to primary school together, so yeah, he's the guy I call if you find me with a dead body or something. So for me, it was Chris. Now, I actually started a company with Chris because we were let go from CI Games. The studio in Katowice shut down, and I was looking for a job, and I didn't want to move from Katowice. So I said, hey, that's a good moment to start a company. And the problem with that is that we had no money, right? Like no savings, no nothing. We're young, relatively young. And the question is, okay, how can we make some money to create our own vision? And the idea was to get an investor. That's simple. But we knew that it's going to take us a couple of, at least, months to do that. You need to create a business plan, you need to go to meetings, etc. And we needed to eat like right away, right? So the idea was to do a little bit of work for hire. And I was in that lucky position that one of my lecturers at the university was actually the CEO of Artifex Mundi. So what I did, I basically called him and said, hey, there's a team that can create a video game for you, and I heard you do that, so maybe that's a good idea to do. So yeah, some may say that, yeah, Unsure Studios was created because they had connections. I'm actually very angry when somebody is angry that somebody uses their connections, because that's all that business development is about, right? It's about making connections, it's about having good impressions on other people, going to conferences like this, meeting people, talking. It's a shitload of work. And when somebody says, yeah, they made it because they have connections, I mean, it's not a politburo here, right? Like, nobody's gonna do any favors for you if you're a shitty developer, basically, right? So, so yeah, that's how we got our first client, Artifex Mundi. And actually, business development is like 90% is like people skills, is making those connections, right? So first of all, you just show up. So you did this step number 1. You're at Digital Dragons, where there a lot of connecting is, especially in the evening. Second thing is that if you're good at something, people usually want to talk to you about it. That's a really good thing to have. For example, you might say that, yeah, I'm a specialist, so for example, who's going to want to talk to a concept artist? Are you a good concept artist? A lot of people want to talk to you, especially other concept artists that want to learn from you. And having a good title under your belt really helps. That's something I had always a problem with. It's like, oh yeah, you work at CA Games. What did you do, Sniper? And I said, no. I worked at Dogfight 9042. What? So having a good title, like for example, I don't know, I worked at Witcher series. Yeah, I was a QA tester at like junior QA tester, but I work on Witcher 3. And that opens doors. That allows you to be acknowledged, and it's easier to make those connections. So I never had that, but it's a good thing. And it takes a lot of time, actually. For the last 2 months, I was 1 week at home, because there was this streak of like Quo Vadis, Game Access, now it's Digital Dragons, Nordic I wasn't on Nordic, but generally it's this time of year when you're all the time at conferences. Okay, so we had our first client, and we had a partner, we had some experience, so now we're starting our company, and now we're actually paying people to do stuff. So the first thing you learn that cash flow is king. And by cash flow, I mean, how much amount do you actually have on your account, and is it bigger amount than the things you need to like spend on it in the upcoming months, like salaries, like rent, like whatever there is, like taxes. That's a new thing when you start a company. So yeah, basically cash flow is king, because this is how a standard cash flow works for a third-party developer, okay? So in the first week, you send out invoices to your clients. Then you pray that they will pay him. And then, hopefully they do. Then you pay your salaries, and you start the cycle all over again. And it's freaking stressful. Because you gotta pay your people, right? You gotta do that, no matter what. So, first thing you learn that it's actually really good to focus on terms of payment than actually amount. Because if there's a huge number on the contract, like you're gonna get $200,000 if you do this, but you need to like have milestones, and those milestones need to be accepted, and usually you're late, and you still need to pay your people, and the milestone is not accepted, etc., and all those kinds of problems. So actually, Artifex Mundi helped us negotiate the terms with them, which is kind of funny. But if we wouldn't have really good terms with them, we'd probably go bankrupt. So, and it's thanks to them. Second thing is, do not overcommit. Like something that I see a lot of, we did it in one project. A client came in, he gave us an X amount of money, and at the end of the day, it turned out we spent it 2X on a project. And it's like, that's not a good deal. It's like, that's not nearly a good deal. Why did I add it another X to that equation, right? But you do that because you want to finish a project, you want to feel professional, etc. Be very cautious about how you, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. And I worked on 17 or 18 commercially released projects. Not one of them was made in the initial budget and in initial time. And either I have really bad luck and I'm a shitty producer, or that's just how our industry works. I mean, we have changes all of the time. We adapt, we change our product, right? And usually that requires change in money, which usually is not that easy to do once you agreed on the first terms. And second thing is, that's only to the third-party developers. Like, you never stop business developing because you think that you're cozy right now, you have your client base, but if you stop business developing right now because you have full of clients, then half a year you're gonna have a gap, yeah? You're gonna have a problem. But I'm not gonna dwell on that. Okay, so we have a cash flow, we have connections, but we don't create our own games. We don't have a margin big enough from third party to create our own games, and this is why we created a company in the first place, right? Because this is how we create a video game company. You want to create video games. So now we revisit the original. Okay, let's get an investor. So we pitched our idea for a game to a couple of rich people, and we had no idea what we were doing. No idea whatsoever. How to create a business plan, how to talk to people outside of the industry. My entire career, I talked with people who knew what game development was about. When you're talking to an investor, right now it's maybe a little bit easier because game development is a little bit more sexy in terms of investment. But those 4 years ago, it wasn't that easy, especially in Poland. So we thought, okay, let's learn how to do that. So there was a program called Zacznij Biz, which translates to Start Biz. And we actually made it to third place. And actually it helped because we started to talk with a lot of investors. And a couple of months later, we had some opportunities of investment. And I went to a TechMind conference where a business angel named Grzegorz Dymek had a speech. I really liked his speech. Then I had a pitch. He really liked my pitch. And we had yeah. It launched May 18th. Should I launch it again or what? Sorry for that. Okay. So yeah, we were trying to determine should we get a business angel or an investor. So I don't want to dwell on that, but long story short is business angels gives you a little bit of money, but he comes on board and he has competencies, right? Some competencies, usually much more than you have in terms of business. Fund goes in, gives you a lot of money, gives you usually a lot of creative freedom, expects concrete results, and usually they don't give you any competencies. They just check if you're performing. So, being a semi-experienced video game developer and having no freaking idea what I'm doing as a businessman, we choose the business angels. And actually, this is how we got a seed round from Grzegorz Dymek. And this is us. So, basically, right now, I'm 100% sure there was like 800,000 zloty online to get from investment and much smaller amount as a seed round. And I'm pretty sure we went bankrupt if we would go with an investment fund because I have no idea how business works, how to negotiate deals, how to secure the cash flow, etc. So Grzegorz actually made our company much, much, much better because he had these competencies that we and Chris simply didn't have. Okay, so we had everything, right? We had investor, we had all the competencies, we have clients, we can create our own video game, like the world is great. But the money problem started to be bigger and bigger because we took a really long time to develop video games. And that became a real problem at Ansher Studios around 3 years ago. When we started Detach, by the way. Detach was a huge part of the problem. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on, sorry. Is it me or? Okay. Should I try the HDMI? Znowu mruga? Okay. So there's this great quote, fail fast and follow the fun. You probably heard it. So the thing is that we actually followed the fun. So when we created video games, we did a lot of focus tests. We did everything right. We did prototypes, vertical slices and everything. And we actually followed the fun. But it took us so much time. And we didn't know how to fail fast back then. 4 mistakes we made is that we made too much of vertical slices. You probably know the difference between prototype and vertical slice, but basically a prototype answers a particular question. When you create a prototype, you want to know, okay, so I'm creating this prototype because I want to know if that mechanic works, or I want to know if the story is okay, or I want to know something else. You create a prototype with a particular purpose and you have a particular question in mind. Vertical slice is actually a full game sliced down to like a couple of minutes of gameplay, for example, half an hour of gameplay, and takes a lot more money to develop. You need vertical slices to pitch the ideas to publishers usually, etc. So having a vertical slice is really nice. But for example, for Detach, we created 2 big vertical slices that took us a couple of months to develop each. And that content was thrown away because it was actually prototyping phase. We were still changing the game. So we created a lot of content that nobody will ever see, which is kind of sad. And it costed a lot of money. Second thing is, right now we have this atmosphere in game development. That game development is, you should be this cozy environment with creativity, like everybody has a say, it's a democracy, like there's no bad ideas, etc. I don't want to sound like an asshole, I probably am, but basically from my experience it's bullshit. If you don't have one person, doesn't matter who it is, it can be a lead designer, creative director, producer, whatever, but one person that has a coherent vision of what the project is about, and the team, obviously they have an input, but basically that input must be coherent and must be processed by that leader, then you're going to have a problem in your production. You're going to iterate, the game's going to be inconsistent, because, you know, he likes racing games and he likes shooters, so like, what are you going to do? You're going to do a shooting racing game, right? You can, but basically that was a huge problem 2-3 years ago, and right now we try to assemble teams in a way that there's one person responsible for a project in terms of creative vision. Like one person. I mean, we can talk, we can argue, but in the end, one person makes a call, right? And best if it's not me, because like a CEO making all the decisions that and CEO usually focuses on business is not a good thing. And we see that also a lot in the industry. And that's a noob mistake, but when we grew, we obviously hired a lot of juniors, right? Because you're a small company, you don't want to spend much money, so you hire juniors. And when you're doing third-party projects, at the end of the day, it's hard to have like a senior in every project. So we had projects that ended up having a big percentage of juniors, or worst case scenario, 100% of juniors. And those projects, well, they lasted long, right? So you want to probably usually go cheap, like let's hire juniors. So they're going to do this thing cheap, but it's going to take them much longer, and the product usually is not that good. So that was also a problem at Answer. And I think that the fourth problem is that we had an actually big, like, comfortable situation. It's like we had a steady cash flow from third-party work, so we could make detached forever. That's why we make it for 3 years, right? If we had a particular amount of money, and if we spend that money, we go bankrupt, then we probably would finish that game sooner, right? Maybe it would result in crunch or something, so that's not a good thing. But that comfortable situation made us create games much longer than we should have. Okay, so we failed really slowly, and you sometimes have gaps in third party, etc. So at one point, we had a credit line. It was around 2 years ago. And that credit line discontinued without a notice in one day, right? So like it was just like, yeah, you don't have a credit anymore. And it's like, what? It's like, yeah, well, we merged with that other bank and basically like, screw you. And so lessons learned is, that was a very stressful couple of days because this was actually like 6 days before salary, something like that. So lessons learned from us, it's actually easy to get money. Now I can like comfortably say, you need money if you have a company, you have ideas, you have competencies. It's really easy to get money if you need it, right? You're gonna need to give something in exchange, but it's easy. It's really hard to get money in 6 days. Really hard, okay? So acquiring funds takes time. So at the end of the day, we just like gave out from our pockets. Every partner pitched in to fill that gap. And lesson learned is now we have 3 different banks where we have history and we can have a credit if we wanted to. So yeah, that's trivia knowledge there for you. Once you have those things, you start to wonder and you start to think about other things in your company, because when you have that cash flow, have that project, you start to optimize. And you start to think about, okay, where this company is going to. And you realize that actually, even in costs, the major cost for every studio are people, are salaries. Like, software is cheap. It's really cheap right now, right? Well, maybe besides 3D Studio Max. But besides that, like everything's cheap. Like computers, okay, but you pay it only once couple of years, right? So everything is actually cheap. The only cost is people. And when you say that this company is good at something, like, yeah, this company really makes good free-to-play match-free games, for example. No, they don't. They have a couple of good people that make good match-free games. If those people left, this company has no competencies whatsoever. I mean, how many of you have like consistent knowledge sharing systems, like documentations of all your projects, lessons learned, postmortems? How many of you? Like show of hands. Yeah, and when you would leave Creative Forge games, like all that knowledge that you possess would be there. Yeah, exactly, that's my point. So basically, all the competencies of your company are in the people. So if cash flow is king, retention is queen, okay? So you need to like make people not leave your company. That's like your primary goal, okay? So we have 97% retention rate, right? So it basically means 1 person leaves a year. And believe me, more try. So that should be your priority. If somebody has a particular skill set, you should make sure that he doesn't leave your company. How we do that? First of all, we're very transparent about like everything in our company. Like Anybody can ask me anything, and there's no like corporate structure and like, yeah, we have investors and we can't really talk about it or something like that. That's a comfortable situation for us, still kind of an indie company, right? That we can communicate everything to our employees. Second thing is we don't have a crunch. And by crunch, I don't mean staying up late to deliver a build, right, for a couple of days. That's not a thing. What a crunch is when a CEO comes in and he says, okay, now for the next 2 months, you're going to work 10-hour days and weekends. Now that's crunch. And that sucks. And basically, you should not do that. And I think that people work at a company not because they want to crunch, like companies that are known for crunching, but they work there despite of a crunch, right? Because they, for example, want to work on a particular project. But Ansher Studio, especially being a third-party studio, we do a lot of third-party work. We don't have that luxury, like, yeah, you're going to work on Witcher 4 or Cyberpunk or whatever. Come with us, and but you'll need to crunch. No, we can't have that argument, right? We don't have that argument. So there's no crunch at Ansher Studios. And as I said, the fact that we launched Detached last week, and for the last week people crunched, it's not crunch. That's just staying overtime because, you know, you're launching a game. Second thing is, you have, usually in game development, you have smart people, right? And smart people have a tendency that they like to be smarter. They like to evolve, they like to learn. And if you don't give them opportunities, like, I think that almost all problems I have with people wanting to leave Ansher Studios is they come up to me and they say, I'm not developing anymore, I'm not learning anything new, okay? So either maybe switch up my projects or maybe give me some other responsibilities because I'm not evolving. So that's like my major problem, and that's like a major thing that we focus, for example, right now in our game design department, and I'm hopeful that we're going to focus on that also in other departments, like in art or programming. But basically, if you give people opportunity to evolve, they're gonna they have one less reason, a major reason to leave your company. So for example, right now in here, we have 34 people and 24 of them are on Digital Dragons, for example, hopefully learning. And because we have a lot of projects that are not that fun and other that are, we try, obviously it's not a perfect system, it's not like Sims with health bars and stuff, but we try to rotate people around the projects. We try to monitor the fact that, okay, I have a feeling that this person is going to leave us if we don't do something in the next 6 months with his situation, for example, at this particular project, because he's burnout. He doesn't like the team, maybe, or he doesn't like the project, or he's not evolving anymore in that project, he's not learning anything. So that's a huge element of my resource management, is like to monitor like an awesome factor of a particular project and an awesome meter on the employee, right? Like, what is his awesome meter? If it's really low, maybe you should give him a project that has a bigger awesome factor than he's currently working on. Okay, so I'm talking for like half an hour now, something like that. I haven't mentioned video game development that much, right? I focus on totally different things. And that's the reason for that, because I'm not making games anymore. That's really sad, but I'm not making video games anymore. That's a realization I had like 1.5 years ago, and it got me really depressed. I mean, not like clinically depressed, but I had a really down moment in my life. It's like, I'm not making games anymore because my 2 main responsibilities on Ansher Studios is create an environment in which other people create video games and bring in business so that we have cash flow, which is king, right? So that's my 2 main responsibilities. I do a couple of other stuff, but that are my 2 main things to do. And making video games is like one of the last things on my list, and I don't have time for that. And I'm gonna tell you that there's no like magic solution to that. No, that's a fact. If you wanna have a business, you're not gonna make video games anymore. If you wanna make video games and you wanna be an indie developer and have a company, well, a team, go to a publisher, let him handle like everything, and just focus on on one particular project. But if you want to develop a real company, you're not going to develop video games anymore. And how I handle it, because it was like, I was talking to my wife, and it's like, yeah, like, screw this, like, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to, like, you know, go do Cyberpunk or something. Maybe they'll hire me. So what I did, I gamificated my own life. Because if you think about it, creating a studio is like developing a video game. Like this very complex strategy video game. And running a studio is like playing that game. So you're playing a game that you need to like adjust and you need to design it. And it's actually, when you think about it in this way, it's really satisfying if you do something that actually works. And if something doesn't work, you can fix it. It's really like video game development. You're still creative, but in other forms. So I just translated it in my head, and I thought that I was like kidding myself. But then I went to GDC this year, and Jesse Schell had a talk, Game Studio Leadership, You Can Do This, which is actually, and he said the exactly same thing. And I was like, awesome. Like, I thought of it first. I didn't heard it from Jesse Schell. By the way, Jesse Schell talks about a lot of things I'm talking about here, and he does it better. He has more experience than me, and you should basically like read everything he ever written and listen to anything he ever said. Unfortunately, that's a link only to the slides. The full talk is on GDC Vault. It's gonna go public probably, but yeah, that's a really good talk, and basically all his talks are very good. So when I accepted that fact, I went into the creating my company with a new energy. And then when adapting to new circumstances comes in, it's like a lot of people, for example, wonder why Artifex Mundi stopped making hidden object games. They were really good at it, right? Why they didn't continue? Or another good example is, okay, let me take a step back. You need to really remember what industry you're in, okay? So that's like a main thing. You're not in an industry of making free-to-play games, or you're not in an industry of making VR escape rooms. You may specialize in that in one particular moment, but you're in the entertainment industry, you're in the show business industry, right? You may be here because you want to entertain, you may be here because you want to create art, or you may be here because you're just a creative person and you want to create. But there are more than one options to do that. So observing what happens to the market and adapting and changing things really helps. A good example, actually, Gregory told me once, was the transportation industry. One time when you want to go overseas, the best thing, the intercontinental travel was all done by sea, right, by ships. And when the flight was discovered and went commercial and everything, many companies that invested in ship transportation, in people ship transportation, basically went bankrupt because they forgot one important thing. They weren't in a ship industry, they were in a transportation industry, right? So you need to remember that. You don't need to stick to your guns and, I go bankrupt because Uber, right? You know what I mean? You to go bankrupt because somebody discovered VR, right? Nobody got bankrupt because discovered VR. Some people got bankrupt because they got into VR, but that's another story. Okay, so there are things that you can explore. There are disruptions in the system that you need to watch. Right now it's VR and AR, right? Something's happening there. On the other hand, you have mobile free-to-play, skyrocketing user acquisition costs, and you need to like take it into account. It's like no, we always made free-to-play games this way. Yes, our revenues are going down, but what you gonna do? Well, adapt, think of something, change something. And right now it's actually easy as a third party, it's easier as a third party studio because real time is, by real time I mean like Unity skills, Unreal Engine skills, or whatever real-time engine skills are required by many other industries. So for example, if you're in a video game development because you like to create, maybe creating interior design in VR is a good way to go, right? There are a lot of options, so try to adapt. And we have, sometimes you have a big success, like a big title sells, like for example, Games was in this situation when Sniper 1 sold really well. You have a lot of money in short amount of time, and you need to do something with it, right? Because money needs to work. Or And doing that fast growth is really hard. For example, CA Games started to spawn new divisions, right? Create multiple projects at the same time, and that actually created a whole new company with a whole new culture. And to do that in a really short time is super hard and requires an enormous amount of experience, and you still have only 24 hours of your life, which some of you should spend on sleeping. And, but we never been in that situation as Anshar Studios. We didn't have like a big selling hit yet. But sometimes you're in a situation that you have free money, you might say, right? So for example, some EU grant or something like that. And this money also changes your company. We got a gaming grant, which is roughly about $500,000. And people say, like, it's awesome, we got $500,000, and it is. I mean, I'm very happy about it. But what it actually means, it will increase our costs about 20%. Because we need to hire more people to do that, because we need to change a couple of things in how we run our company, etc. We calculated that it will increase our costs by 20%. Which means that I have 20 months, because that's how long gaming lasts, and then money is gone. I have 20 months to actually make my company handle that, right? So I'm going to have a company that has 20% bigger costs. I better have the margins and the income after those 20 months to cover that differences. Or I'm going to do what? Get another grant? Now that's a death circle, right? I'm living only off grants and I don't have a sustainable business that actually earns money. So I'm not saying don't do this. I mean, I would be hypocritical if I would. I'm saying be aware of the fact that it's not free actually, right? That it changes you and requires you to adapt. And at the end of the day, you should aim at having a business that earns shitload of money without that, okay? And this is just should be just a supplement. On the two ending notes, I'm sorry, but my timer is screwed up. How much time do I have? Okay, so I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to be quick. Okay, first thing is, when you already covered all those bases, you start to wonder, okay, I was in a survival mode all the time, right? It was like, we just need to have our salaries paid, we need to have our projects have on time, everything, like we do video games, we know what we're doing, but at one point you start to wonder, okay, where this leads to. So I know that this sounds like a corporate bullshit, it's like, yeah, every company should have a mission. Actually, right now, for the last couple of months, I think that that's like why we didn't have a mission sooner. Why we didn't have it 2 years ago. Why did I thought of a mission only, a couple months ago? Well, one, we were in a survival mode for a long time. And two, I just didn't know any better until I read a couple of things, saw a couple of things, started to think, and I found out how important is why we're doing things. Because we're in the gaming industry usually focus on what we're doing. We're doing video games and that's it. Like, not many people wonder why they're doing a particular thing. Let me give you an example. What you're doing? I'm doing a roguelike RPG. Okay, how are you doing it? Well, we're adding a unique taint system, which then player decides what type of flow will he have. Okay, why are you doing it? Well, we're doing this because we want to have meaningful gameplay. We want to have that the player interactions actually mean something, that his choices mean something. And that's a very bad pitch for Soul Blight, which is a cool indie game. Actually, I think it's showcased here somewhere. So let's try it other way around, okay? So why are you making a video game? Well, I believe that video games can be more than just gameplay mechanics. That we can have like deeper emotions, deeper concepts, talk about real deep stuff. Like, for example, we can create a game about forgiveness. I want to create a game about forgiveness, okay? So how are you doing it? Well, we created this abstract world in which the player expresses, the main character expresses herself through dance. Okay, and what do you do there? Like, what is it? Well, it's a platformer game with cutscenes about family issues, and we also have speedrunning. Now, obviously, you probably know what it is pitch to, but if I would lead with what? I want to create a game platform, a platforming game. That's it, like, you're dead. Like, I would stop listening to that person because he's creating a platformer. Like that's the most boring subject ever right now, right? Obviously, I'm talking about Bound from Plastic. So the why is important. Bound is not a platforming game. Bound is a game about forgiveness, okay? Like, I don't want to spoil exactly what it's about, but it's a game about focusing on this why is really important. I don't have time to go into details. I could talk about that mission for hours right now. I really encourage you to see Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, and it's actually, he talks a lot about importance of why. And if you don't want to hear it from Simon Sinek because he's a coach and a manager and he's not from the industry, then you have Jason Vandenberg, which is a creative director at Ubisoft who created For Honor, who says basically the same thing but in game developy type of a way, having For Honor as an example. And this is actually on Vault, publicly available. So I encourage you to watch both those speeches. And ending, I don't have much time to go into that, so like Google it. But I encourage you to play the infinite game, which basically means in a finite game there are a particular set of rules. There's always a winner, a loser, number one, number two, etc. And many companies do that. I mean, we want to be #1 company that creates RPG games in the world, right? That's very hard to accomplish. When you play an infinite game, what you basically want to do is you want to constantly improve yourself. And you're constantly trying to yourself and be better than your version from, let's say, last year, right? And by that, you stay longer in the game than anybody else, and you basically outlast your competition. Not to go into many details, again, Finite and Infinite Games by Simon Sinek. I really encourage you to see that. Oh, sorry. There's at the end of there's going to be a slide with a link to slides, so don't worry. So Answer Studios right now is far from being the best company, right? Like in the world or in Poland or whatever, far from. But every year we're better than the Answer from the last year. So in the words of Matthew McConaughey, who in his acceptance speech for Oscar is, "You're here is you in 10 years." So that's like infinite game in reverse. So you're always chasing yourself in 10 years, right? You try to be better than previously. And yeah, as you can see, when you move from the left to the right, there's like less concrete things and more like those corporate bullshitty type of things, because this is what you do. You start to think about like other concepts and you start to think of how to evolve, how to create your company, and you think in totally different ways. And unfortunately, for some of you, because I know that you want to just create video games, this is what you're going to end up with, right? So think twice if you want to actually start your own studio. Okay, thank you. I don't know if you have any time for questions because we had some technical issues. Sorry for that. Here's an URL to slides, so there's everything there, and you can always catch me on Twitter at Łukasz Hacura. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have like 2 minutes for questions. Any questions? Like, we have 2 minutes for questions. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks for your talk, very, very interesting and complete. Just a quick question. Did you have a vision when you started actually the company?
No. And actually when I started a company, I just wanted to create video games. That was I focus on the what. It's like, I love video games. I played video games my entire life. I'm a game developer. And me and Chris, we always wanted to do our own stuff. And actually now when I think about it, it's a really shallow reason to start a company, because you can accomplish that in much easier ways. Just create video games, right? So no, that's actually something that spawned, like it banged inside of my head for the last maybe year, and kind of grew to a concrete thing in the last couple of months. Maybe I was too stupid. Like maybe I had not that much experience. Maybe I'm not a visionary, I don't know. But actually no, that's something that I evolved from. And you can see in the presentation, we weren't focusing on that at all, like clients, terms, cash flow. That was the things that I was interested in back then, right? So no, the vision, and I actually envy people who have a real clarity of vision at the beginning. I need to like, I wasn't ready, I think. Yeah. I think there's a question here. Okay.
Thanks for the talk.
Thank you.
My question is pretty simple. When you were at the crossroads between finding a new job and starting your own company, how scared were you, and how did you overcome the fear of?
Okay, so there are two sides to that question. One side is, it's not only I was on a crossroads between finding a new job and starting my own company, I was actually fired, right? So that's, when you're fired, I mean, you can be a confident person, but when you're being fired, I mean, now when I think about it from perspective, it's like, it's silly, it's like the best thing that happened to me, yay! But in the moment it happens, it's like the worst thing in your life, that moment, right? Like you're fired, your self-esteem is really down, and you're depressed, and you think that you're shit, and it really helps when you have an awesome partner. For example, my wife helped me through that really well for this like couple of weeks of semi-depression. So actually I started to think about it only a month after, and I know that that's not a very inspiring thing to say, but I didn't have any good job offers in Katowice. So actually most of because I had a couple of interesting choices, but it was either Wrocław or it was either Warsaw, right? And it was like, I kind of don't want to move. And we talked with Chris, and like, we always talk that we want to create our own company, but it's always like kind of a joke, you know, like, yeah, someday we're going to do it. And it's like, hey, like, maybe that's not the stupidest idea in the world. So yeah, I know it's not like very inspiring, but that's like actually how it went down. And one more thing, it was opportunistic, because when we got fired from CI Games, it's not that I got fired or Chris got fired. The entire department was fired in Katowice. So there were a lot of people looking for job, and that's not a common thing in video game development. Right now, when a studio shuts down, like 6 hours later, everybody has a job, right? So we were in this rare opportunity where we could pick like, okay, so let's date this guy, her, and him, and we're gonna start our own company because they have a lot of competencies and we know them. It's a good moment to start a company, right? So it was a little bit of opportunistic, and I didn't want to move, yeah.
Last question?
You have, yeah.
You have mentioned that it is easy to get money and talk with investors, but I had impression that when you mentioned investors, you were talking about people from outside of gaming
industry,
world,
yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Do you?
I think that right now it's even easier to get money than it was back then, actually.
But you believe that it is, if you have your own project, it is better to not go asking for money to publisher, but instead to find independent business that's...
Yeah, that's a really hard and complex question, and we can talk about it like after, so I'm gonna just try to answer really quickly, because there's more than one variable, okay? There's many variables you need to think. It's like, what is your like exit strategy? What do you want to achieve at the end, right? Do you want to have a company, or do you want to have IP, or do you want to like have a series of games out, or you just want to learn, or whatever? Your motivation is very important, and depending on your motivation, you're going to go with different things. Maybe you need an investor because you want to create a company and you want to develop your own business. Maybe you just want to focus on creating a video game. Like one project, just handle a team, not a business, right? Then it's maybe better to go to a publisher, right? But to go to a publisher, also the difference is that right now it's really easy, in my opinion, to get money from publishers if you have a vertical slice. If you have a vertical slice, it's real easy, because if they see something in your game that's unique, and you have a vertical slice, they believe your credentials. That's why experience is also important, because they need to believe that you can pull off the game. Then getting money from a publisher should be relatively easy, right? Getting money from investors is also very easy in terms of, hey, here's 2 million zloty, but for what? On what terms? What's the percentage? What's the catch? What's your exit strategy? There's so many things to consider later on that at the end of the day, maybe it's not that easy, because maybe it doesn't correlate with your vision of what you want to create, right? Because the investment fund or a business angel, whatever, they can have their vision of what they want to invest in. Maybe they want another CD Projekt Red, and you don't want that. You don't want to grow to a 500 people company. You want to create your own 20, 30 person isometric RPGs to the end of your life, for example, right? So there are so many variables that there's no golden solution. Yeah, you should always, all video game developers should go to publishers or they should go to investment funds. No, it's not that easy. Sorry. Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you very much again.